to be able to put those two things.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of 25 with Tech 25. I am Admin Secretary Tim Higgins, joined by
I'm Andrew Benton. I'm Data and Systems Specialist for the district.
Chris Bono, Director of Technology and Assessment.
and we're here today to talk to you about being organized with your computer.
One thing about being organized is getting your questions answered. And the best way that you can do that is you can see on the bottom, you can tweet us at ahsd25.tech. You can do that at any time during the broadcast and we'll address those, or you can send an email to tech25@sd25.org and we'll be sure we get back to you with any information or questions that you might have about even what you see during the episode today.
So we are going to talk about getting organized today, specifically being organized on your Mac computer. And now I realize that maybe not everybody watching has a computer that is assigned to them specifically. However, you would probably find yourself using Apple computers throughout the day. We're going to also kind of talk about some tricks and tips in terms of navigating and being efficient in terms of finding things. So there's a little bit for I think everybody to pick up on here today. And so I'm going to switch us over so that we are viewing our desktop. And this might look kind of familiar to people. I know that a lot of computers that I work on and help people solve some issues with tend to look like this, maybe worse, in terms of just having files all over the place. It's very easy in our day-to-day to be working on a document, make some changes, make some additions, make a whole bunch of new files, and just easily just kind of leave it out on our desktop. Or maybe if you're somebody who uses the documents folder, leave them in no particular order in the documents folder. The nice thing about Apple is that they have it set up in a way that you can organize all of your information in a sort of easy to understand way that fits the way that you think about things. We all kind of think about our organization in different ways, and the Apple computers kind of allow you to do that. The main tool that they use to do that is the little blue face on here. It's our Finder. Excuse me. And our Finder is kind of the organization of our computer as a whole. It's kind of how our folders interact with each other, how they're connected, and it puts a visual to the information that we're using on the computer. The thing I want to bring up first is that when you kind of get your computer put into your hands, there's a default, and default just means that's kind of the way that it comes. And this menu bar here on the left-hand side is actually a really great navigational tool. However, the way that it's set up can be misleading or not as intuitive as it should be. So I kind of want to point out here how we can change what we're viewing on our left side toolbar to make it a little bit more efficient to jump around from folder to folder or part of your computer to different parts. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to click up here on our Finder, and we're going to select our Finder preferences. Now, the first thing that pops up here is a whole list of a bunch of different things, and it could be things that maybe you don't even know necessarily what it means. But we'll kind of go through it quickly to point out that the aspects that I want you to select to be viewable in your Finder. The main folder I would like everybody to have visible in their Finder is going to be this home folder here. Now, it'll be named something different. We're on a student user on our computer, so it just says student. But if it's your assigned computer, it should say your last name, your first initial, your last name. And we want this checked. This is our home folder. This is pretty much what your entire folder hierarchy stems from, is this home folder. And if I click on, we can see in our Finder, the student user here, we have all of the familiar folders like applications, desktop, documents, and so on. So I would say this is actually probably our #1 most important folder to have viewable. Having your desktop and your documents are going to be two pretty important folders as well. And I'm going to have Andrew kind of talk to you a little bit about why these are two particularly important folders to have on here.
Yeah, I think the list that you're looking at, I actually think the machines that you end up with, the image that comes or the default, as Tim talked about, that comes, does not even have the desktop out in your sidebar. And so the one thing that we know that you can get to your desktop folder and to your documents folder by clicking on that sidebar on your home, in this case student. But if you check document and you check download in this finder preference, they actually appear immediately on that sidebar, and so you don't have to go those 2 levels deep. So I would say that what you see, if you include downloads, Tim,
Yeah.
I would say that what you see here is probably your best bet for your machine setup.
I would have to agree. Keeps it kind of nice and simple, but it's giving you the most important folders here that you're going to be using on a day-to-day basis. We see that there's a whole bunch of other things that we can select on here. The rest of it is not necessarily important to see. It's different add-ons, things when you have an external hard drive plugged in. It's those sort of preferences if we want to view those. And I would suggest, as I always do, that just kind of clicking and seeing what happens, coming into these different sections, seeing what it offers when you click the checkbox. Not necessarily the worst thing in the world to see what's out there, see what we have available.
You got to be adventurous sometimes.
Right. That's really the only way to be.
I would say, actually, if you go back to sidebar, I would say that under shared, that connected servers is an important one. So in our daily lives, we're connecting to servers, and sometimes automatically when your machine logs in, and so that's another one that you would want to have.
Before we leave this Finder preferences, another thing I just want to point out here too is there's a preference here that when you open up a new Finder window, what the first folder that opens up in that brand new window is. I like mine to pop open into my home folder so that I right away come up with what we're seeing on the screen here, that I have this entire grouping of folders available to me right off the bat. So I would also suggest maybe changing your new Finder window preference to your home folder. Andrew, is there anything else you'd like to add here before I close out of here? All right. So heading back to our Finder window, we notice that right across the top we have this toolbar of, unless you know what they are, kind of very nondescript icons. And the first group of 4 that I want to draw our attention to is this on the far left-hand side here, are the different views that the Finder can be arranged in. Right off the bat, icon view is typically the first one that is always selected. And it shows these nice little folder pictures with little icons on them, sort of telling you what they are. This is a nice view as long as you don't have that much stuff on your computer, because it takes up a lot of space. It relatively, in my opinion, relatively inefficient a way of looking at your files. And so I really typically try to point people in the direction of either our list view here or our column view. And the reason for this is that the list view gives you all of your files in a sort of a listed way, arranged depending on how you have actually this menu set, which is you can set it by alphabetical order as the default, but you can set it by the date that things were added, things were changed, all different tools depending on what specifically you're trying to keep track of or trying to find. You notice that when we're in the list view here, we see these little triangle icons here on the left-hand side of our title, and this is a little kind of twirl down menu, and so you can actually easily see what is within each of these folders by clicking on this twirl down menu, and then it puts all the contents also in alphabetical order or whatever order you have set. It's kind of a neat and nice way to quickly look at things. My personal favorite here is actually this column view, the third icon in our view icons. And this one I kind of compare to sort of the Hansel and Gretel breadcrumb way of looking at things. And we're going to be talking here in the next couple minutes about setting up a folder structure, a different hierarchy of organization that you can have set up to keep track of your files. And when you have one of those set up, this view is particularly useful because you get to see where you are as well as where you came from in terms of your your trail of clicks. So we can see that I've clicked on my home folder and I want to view desktop. So as soon as I click on desktop, to the right, I'm shown all of the contents of my desktop folder. And we see that down here, we can also click even further into a folder, assuming that there was something in it. There's not. These are empty folders. But so on and so forth down the line, you get to see what folder you're in, what the contents are, and where you came from to easily find your way back. In my opinion, it's the way that it makes it the most easily understandable the way that your computer is currently set up. And then we'll talk about it for a second, but the cover flow is this last view here, which I think is kind of the most inefficient. It's kind of neat. It looks like the old school iTunes setup where it has a little icon of the documents you're looking at as well as a list view. If that's something that floats your boat, by all means, go ahead and use that one. But I'm typically going to stick with either of these two in the middle in terms of the most efficient. The next sort of icon on our toolbar, so we kind of talked about here, this is the different arrangements that we can set our files in. Again, this is sort of something I will encourage people to sort of just go through, click the different options, see how it changes the information that you're looking at, and really kind of by trial and error, figure out which way you want to look at it best.
And this is in this list view, you're able also to just click right on the column title. So you see date modified. I actually live and die by that date modified. So I might have a lot of folders and a ton of files within each folder. Because I have that ton of files and folders, I really like just clicking on date modified because it's probably something, if it's something that of course I just worked on. So I do use that because I saved an Excel file down to my hard drive. Now I'm on, you know, some site that needs me to upload that file, and so I click date modified and boom, it pops right to the top that it was the last thing I did.
And that works with all of these little headers here. Is it, you know, if you click on it, it will arrange all of your information by that particular column.
And if you click back on name, then it'll go back to alphabetical for you.
So while we are here on the desktop, and again, this is sort of our desktop of disorganization, I want to draw our attention here to this little gear button right here. And this gives us the option to perform, it's the task button, really, is what it is. If we click on it, it gives us this drop down of all sorts of different options that we can do. Some of which are not, you know, necessarily related to organization, but are different options of something that you can do with the particular file that is selected. In this case, what I'd like to do right now is make a couple different folders that I can throw some of these files into. Now, I realize too that a lot of you have maybe had your computers for several years and have accumulated a lot of stuff, a lot of files that might be piled up here on your desktop in no particular order. They might be in your documents folder. Again, also just sort of loosely in there in no particular organization. This either can be this very painstaking process where you block out a huge amount of time, you know, like a whole weekend or something, where you sit down and organize everything. Or the way that I kind of like going about it is setting up a file structure and then sort of slowly over time, kind of dragging and dropping the files that you want to go where they need to go. And so what I'm going to do here is on our desktop, and again, we know that we're on the desktop because it's highlighted over here on the left. I'm going to click on our task button and on the new folder button. And what that automatically does here down at the bottom is it gives me an untitled folder, which in this case I'm going to label by this particular school year. Over here at district office, I keep track of a lot of the, the receipts of the things that we buy in the tech department and sort of our financial information. So it's helpful for me to kind of group it by month and by year for referencing later. And so we will do 2014, 2015. And then we see that that throws it then into the alphabetical order. Numbers always go up to the top of our alphabetical order. And I'm going to actually go into our column view here. And as I have this 2014-15 section highlighted, I'm going to click New Folder again and be able to create a folder within my school year folder, which I'm going to name January. And what I'm actually going to do, because I'm going to eventually put all the, all 12 months in here, to keep it in a numerical order, in an order going by the actual months, I'm going to put a number in front of it so that it goes in a numerical sequence, rather than if I just had January, February, March, it would try to put it into alphabetical order, and it kind of takes the whole thing out of whack. And I guess just for example purposes, I'll make a December one as well. And what I will be doing is just selecting different documents and throwing them into the folder in which they belong. And so the great thing about this setup is that you're not restricted by how many folders you can make. You can do all sorts of things. So inside of this December folder, I can then have, 10 different folders. One is purchase receipts. I can do, I can even break it down and do it by our vendors, and I can make it, be Apple and CDW and so on and so forth, to get it very specific so that, 6 months from now, when I don't really remember what I did with something, I can at least say, well, I know that in, December of the 2014-15 school year, we bought some Apple stuff. I can go into my, December folder, and right here is my, Apple purchase. And that, if I move this out of the way, cleans up our desktop quite a bit. And so, like I said, this can be a sort of a slow process over time, where you just every day you pick, 30 items, you figure out what they are and where they need to go. You drag them where they need to go, and then you move on with whatever is in the forefront of your.
There's also the idea of starting from here. So the reason we're doing this after the new year is because everybody's a lot of resolutions having to do with organization of our lives and here in our computers. And so you can start your hierarchy now and start using it. And then, like Tim said, over time, some of the files that you have been, laying all over the place, you can get them in there.
And really, an organization, we hope, is one of those resolutions that we haven't ditched already here by the 13th of January. I think this is a pretty important one, and it makes, really, because it is one of those things that makes your life a lot easier in the long run, if you keep things organized.
Yeah, and another important thing in terms of Tech 25 and living on our network with machines assigned to you is that the desktop and the documents folder are the only things synced. They're the only things backed up. And so if you have files outside of the desktop or the documents folder, they will not be backed up. So pay close attention to that.
So, speaking to that, well, I would want this folder to either be out here on the desktop or a place where it's nice, out of sight, out of mind, especially if it is like an archive of whether it's teaching materials or records like this. The documents folder is a perfect place for that.
Another thing that happens on the sidebar, you see download. So you will be out on a website and you'll click on a PDF and it'll do a little, you'll see a little animation and you have no idea where it went. It likely went to your downloads folder. In every browser, Firefox, Safari, the rest of them, you can choose where your downloads are going to go, but the default on Macs typically would be the downloads folder. And so clicking on that downloads folder, and remember you got it there because you went to Finder Preferences and clicked the little checkbox for downloads to make sure it's over on that sidebar. By clicking on that, you find that file that you thought disappeared, that you don't know where it went. And so it did go to your downloads folder. You could change it, but we actually suggest the downloads folder.
And and this is another thing I would actually say, and maybe even one of the first things on ways you embark on being a more organized person in this new year, is go to your downloads folder first. I have found, just from my experience, being over in one of the middle in Thomas for 2 years, or being here when people bring in computers that are acting up, and if it's in terms of things being slow, or just even as I go in and try to fix something and notice where things accumulate the most, a lot of storage space is wasted by never cleaning out this downloads folder. People tend to, let things download from the internet, PDFs, videos, things like that. You use them once, and maybe you just open it, because one of the things too is that typically when things download, they do often just open up right away. So it puts you right into the program, or you're looking to edit or just view. And it may be one of those one-time view sort of things that you don't ever need again. I suggest coming in here to your downloads folder and cleaning out all of that junk that really was a one-time view, things that you don't need to save, and clear out some of your storage space so you can use it for more worthwhile items.
But it may also be a PDF that you actually need to keep around, and it may be a PowerPoint that you'd like to keep around. So when those launch automatically in your browser, understand that they probably dropped themselves into the downloads folder, but that is not in your folder structure. Well, it's in your folder structure, but basically you want to do a save as, so that you can save it to the location that you're going to go back to see that PowerPoint later. Another thing is, and this is I don't know, top 5 mistake, is you get an emailed attachment. You double click on the attachment in the email and you start working on it. That attachment, that file is sitting potentially not even in your downloads. That is not in your downloads folder when you double click on an attachment in an email. It's in a true netherworld. It's probably about 8 folders deep in some sort of, if you open an Excel document, it's in some sort of 8-level deep Microsoft Office file attachment, email, something. You definitely want to do a save as. Get it into your structure, make your alterations, and that file will be, rather than floating in the middle of nowhere, it will be where you can go find it later. Just to get quick here, because we only have about 4 minutes, the Spotlight is another big item. Really, it's just a good old-fashioned search for your hard drive. So it's interesting. You could have a messy hierarchy, a messy desktop, and utilize Spotlight to just start typing the name of the file to find, regardless of how messy it is. But we do suggest that there's certainly going to be times where you don't know the name of the file, you don't know the name of the file, and so no, Spotlight's not going to help you. You're going to want that clean structure so that you can go through and find it. But if you do know the file, Spotlight will immediately search your entire machine, even emails, and will assist in finding a file.
That it will. And so I'm going to pull up this little training ground video that we showed here at the beginning. And if I just even type in training or part of the word train, we see down here, because I know it's a movie, shows me right down here, and I can click on it, and it'll launch right into that video straight from there. So this, I would say the Spotlight is a great tool. It, however, ends up being one of the great enablers of disorganization, because, like Andrew said, you don't necessarily need to know where the item is to be able to track it down from there.
Tim, it's also in a little bit separate, but still organization. You wanted to talk about managed software update, which all of you, yes. We'd like all of you to be very clear about.
Mm-hmm. So everybody's probably run into the situation where you'd be trying to look up a video or something like that online, and you get this Adobe QuickTime player is not working, or the Adobe Flash is not working, or plugin needed. One of the things we do here actually is we have the ability to put different updates into this managed software update program that automatically shows up on everybody's computer. It's searchable through the Spotlight. That's my favorite way of getting to it, because otherwise it is a utility. And what it will do is it'll search our server here for any of the updates that Brad or any of us have put into this updater, and it lets you actually run them yourselves without needing any sort of password, without needing to download anything from the internet. It's already there. And so right now, because this computer is pretty updated at the moment, we're not seeing anything, but this exact box would show up, and in behind this little pop-up window that came up here, it would just be listed. It would say, Adobe Flash or Java update. And this is one of the first great steps in troubleshooting any of the issues that you've happened to run into in terms of programs not working or videos not being viewable. And again, easiest way is to come to this Manage Software Update. It usually comes up as the top hit here. You launch it, it looks for updates that we've put out there, and then you just click on Update Now. This window actually might even look familiar as one that just shows up on its own periodically. And I know that a lot of people tend to do later or do, to close out of it because they don't want to, you don't want to mess anything up. This is one of those things where you cannot mess anything up. It's regulated by us, and we're actually sending it out to you to make your life a little bit easier, to make things work a little bit smoother for you. So the Managed Software Update, excellent tool, and an excellent first step in troubleshooting any issues that you're running into, especially online or in any of your other programs. So I'm going to quit it at the moment.
This was a pretty basic training. We do want you to know that we're going to be doing some, first of all, for those of you that need a little assistance and you are in a bit of chaos with your machine, you can certainly come in and visit with us, and we'll be happy to assist in your structure or whatever it might be. So please do come in and see us. We will be happy to help. But also, we do know this was a pretty basic training. We're just talking file management here, and we're talking organization, but we do find it important. There will be more advanced courses sessions of 25 with Tech 25, so we don't want to lose anyone if you felt that maybe this was a little bit below you. We do know that we have 800 staff, 5,300 kids, so you never know whether that you actually do know that there's all sorts of users, and in this case we went with a basic organization.
And that's where we appreciate your feedback in terms of what topics any of you would like us to touch on, or either to touch on or to kind of dive deep into. And that's where tweeting us at the @HSD25tech, or just sending us an email at tech25 or any of our work emails. We would greatly appreciate it, because at the moment we're just sort of flying by what we kind of assume is useful and what we've seen.
Yeah, just let us know. Big or small topic, we'll be all over it.
Absolutely. So again, thank you for tuning in. And this video will be available on my YouTube channel, Tim Higgins at sd25.org YouTube channel. As soon as this broadcast is over, it uploads. We also have all of our past episodes there as well. So again, thank you.
All right.
Have a great night. Drive safe.